I don't know that tonight I can add anything to what you are already feeling about the plight of the Palestinians. I do not think that I can add to the empathy that you already feel. I do not think that I can add to the pity that you feel. I do not think that I can add to the anger that you feel about what is being done to the Palestinians. What is to say that empathy and pity and anger, justified as they all are simply not enough if we are to deliver solidarity to the Palestinians. What we need beyond those responses is organisation and numbers. Ordinary people like you and I, we do not have the power of the mainstream media. We do not have great wealth. We are not the owners of guns and ammunition. The only thing that we really have are numbers. There are far more of us than there are of them. But you know, numbers in themselves aren't enough. What we need is numbers and organisation. The organisation to keep marching. The organisation that's delivered in this country 20 national demonstrations in a year in solidarity with the Palestinians. Do you know how far back you have to go in the history of this country to find a movement on this scale with these numbers? You have to go back beyond the huge demonstrations against the war in Iraq, and I was one of the organisers of those demonstrations. Back beyond that. Back perhaps to the suffragettes. Perhaps to the 19th century, to the great movement for the vote in this country called the Chartists. What you have built, what we have done, is a historic movement in this country, and we need to continue to build it. And as we do so, we need to understand that our solidarity with the Palestinians is not just about ensuring their victory. It is about ensuring a decent life for us as well. Because we are just about to hear the budget in this country. And the budget in this country will take money out of your pocket, it will take money out of our NHS, and it will give it to the arms industry, and the arms industry will give it to the Israelis. So when we are in solidarity with the Palestinians, we are ensuring that there is a decent life for people in this country as well. Because the enemies of the Palestinians are our enemies. It was a British Prime Minister. It was the British Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, who said, "Let the bodies pile high." He was not talking about Palestinians. He was talking about you and I in the COVID pandemic. 170,000 excess deaths in this country because Boris Johnson and his friends partied through the COVID pandemic. Now, any government, any Prime Minister that will do that to people in this country, of course, they will allow the Palestinians to be murdered in their tens of thousands. And that's why we are all Palestinians, because our enemies and the Palestinians' enemies are the same people. The Boris Johnsons, the Keir Starmers, the Joe Bidens, the Donald Trumps, the rich and the powerful. So I was thinking about what we must do. And I thought about a speech that the great Martin Luther King made in 1968. And in that speech, he said, "The arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice." The arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice. And he knew from the war of his era, the Vietnam War, what that meant. It meant that poor, mostly black American soldiers were killed to the tune of 55,000 in Vietnam. But the Vietnamese lost 2 million people in the Vietnam War. Yet it was eventually the Americans that were forced from Vietnam and the Vietnamese that were successful despite that huge loss of life. And it is always this way in anti-colonial struggles. They have the weaponry, they have the money, but we have the fortitude, the stamina, and the ability to bring down empires, and that's what we must do alongside the Palestinians today. Because, if I might just correct, with the greatest respect, if I might just correct Dr. Martin Luther King, if the arc of history is long, and if it does bend towards justice, it only does so because we bend it. It will not bend of its own accord. It will only bend if millions of us organize to make it so. If we stand up to wealth and power and say no, not in our name. If we stand up to wealth and power and say that we want the rights of people to come before the rights of profit. If we say we want the lives of people to come before the arms industry. If we want to say to the Americans, when they have said to the Israelis, yes, you may bomb Iran, but don't bomb the oil fields. Don't bomb the oil fields. Because for the Americans and for the British government, the price of oil is worth more than the lives of Palestinians or the lives of working people in Britain or America. And we want a different world, a world without colonialism, a world without imperialism, a world without exploitation. And I believe that's why 66% of people in this country support the Palestinians. Think about it. Every time you walk down the road, 2 out of every 3 people you see support the Palestinians. And they don't do so, you know, because they're co-religionists or of the same nationality or come from the Middle East. They do so for a very simple reason. Because it is deep in the blood of people in this country that when they see somebody's boot on somebody's neck, they are in solidarity with the person on the ground and not with the person who's got the boot. When they see a boy standing against a tank, they are in favor of the boy and not the tank. They are in favor of the exploited, not the exploiters, of the oppressed, not the oppressor. Solidarity.